All right. Hey there, outliers. Niiamah Shang here. And thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. We're here on the Outliers Edge Roundtable, where we're bringing together some amazing outliers who continue to find ways to uplift themselves, uplift the people around them, and ultimately keep playing the game where their income, their impact, and their integrity keeps going to higher and higher heights. I'm excited for you to get to know the outliers that we have brought on today. Why don't we start with Hannah? Hannah, would you mind letting us know more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Sure. So I'm in Australia at the moment, and I've spent the past 9 years really focusing on working with women around their relationship with their sexuality. So that goes as deep as like working with their relationship with their womb on an energetic and physical health level. And I've been doing that through mentoring and kinesiology, and also teaching dance classes as a way to like get into the body and like unlock that expression.
Nice. What got you into that?
I've been dancing since I was two, so it's kind of always been a part of my work. And when I was 20, stepped out of a relationship where I needed a lot of healing and had a lot of shame and guilt around sexuality. And through my own journey of unlocking that, I realized how many people weren't having that conversation and how common an issue it was. And yeah, it just lit a torch for me and kind of been snowballing since then.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that snowball has led you to this conversation. Looking forward to seeing where things go from here. Well, why don't we get to know Richard now? Richard, would you mind sharing more about you and the game that you play?
Sure, play lots of games, Niiamah, but I've evolved into a men's coach, running men's groups and offering retreats into the mountains to get men more connected to authenticity, vulnerability, and one another, and get over some of those wounds they carry from childhood.
Thanks so much for being here, Richard. I love this element of like going up into the mountains and things like that. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we like to play. We like to play fully when we play. So I see you, Richard, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Gretchen, can you please let us know more about you and the game that you play?
Sure. So I am a three-time cancer survivor who was diagnosed diabetic in 2021 and had been morbidly obese or obese my whole entire life and realized I had to make some changes. So I started a transformative journey in my late 50s and lost over 100 pounds, which led me to start a podcast called The Work in Between. And then I published a book. And I have been on a journey of helping people realize that pretty much any changes they want to make starts on the inside. And so I have been having quite a wonderful experience working in that space.
Well, I really want to just thank all three of you for being here. I think that there's something here where I get that each of you have like walked the path of life and continue to expand and do what you can to bring that out to others. So throughout this conversation, I want to see more about like what you do and more importantly, who you be as you do it. Right. And so we'll start off here. I'd like to ask this first question here, and I'll do it in the same order that we introduce ourselves. So we'll start off with you, Hannah. Um, Hannah, I'm curious about on kind of on the inner journey here. What's a belief that you had to up level in order for you to level up in the work that you do or the way that you show up?
Oof. It was a big one around purpose. Sorry, I just gotta clear my throat for a second. A big one around purpose, and that I don't need a purpose or a function in order to belong here. Uh, and that in discovering that, it was just this beautiful de-armoring of like my purpose is purely to create. And that can be whatever I want. It doesn't have to be this like intense thing that I need to fulfill in order to be allowed to exist, really.
Yeah, there's something in there that feels um like tantalizing. I'm like, whoa, wait, the purpose is just to be. If I'm
Yeah.
getting you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, lovely. Thank you, Hannah. Thanks for getting us started on this one here. Richard, how about you? What's a belief that you needed to up level in order to play the level you play now?
I think the idea that I talk a lot about in my book and about society's checklists that I had this idea I had to be 27 with a red sports car and a PhD and like performance first, that my role was to provide and perform. And I had to drop a lot of that story and in a way embrace just who I am. That nothing external can prevent you from grieving or from going through some of the journeys that your ancestors, your culture, your family have gone through. So, in a way, stepping more into that is actually where the power lies. So, dropping the checklists, identifying where they exist within me and where I'm chasing them.
This is really interesting, y'all. Y'all are playing some cool things here. I'm gonna ask Gretchen the same question, then we're gonna open up this a bit. Gretchen, how about you? What's a belief that you needed to up level in order to play the level that you play now?
I have to say the biggest belief that I had to up level was the belief that my dreams, my goals, my life was just as important as everybody else's, and that I had to figure out how to put the same amount of effort and energy into my own versus how much effort and energy I was putting into helping other people achieve theirs. That was a huge moment for me to flip the script on myself. And that is what has allowed me to move in directions that I would have never even thought about before.
Let's play from here. Let's move. Let's talk about the directions we wouldn't have even thought about right now. So right now, the direction I'm going to think about is up, but there may be other places that we can think of that come out of it. I am really curious about like I earlier said like what's the game that you're playing, and I I'm curious about like when you think about like your purpose. And I get that this may not work for you, so as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, that word came from somewhere else. But when you
Okay.
think about like the biggest game that you can play, or the most fun game, if that's the way that you look at it here, right? What are you driving toward? Like, what does that actually feel like and look like for you, Gretchen? I'm seeing some nods come from you.
Mm.
So why don't we start off with you, and then we'll see where the conversation goes.
So I worked with a transformational coach for a while, and we talked about this very thing a lot. And but prior to that, I had just lost my younger brother, and I was grieving really heavily and really hard. And somebody who I did not know reached out to me and shared an article with me that was written about him and his wife. And one of the statements in that article was, what is the best thing that could possibly happen from this really awful event? And it completely changed my trajectory with my grief. And so I started framing everything as what is the absolute best thing that could come from this? And I realized that it was sharing my story, sharing their story, and helping people realize that they can make whatever changes they're trying to make. They can do that if they look inward and start really doing that hard work. And so, if you ask what's the game I'm playing, that's the game I'm playing, is I am trying to do my very best to get that message out and help people, empower people, and understanding that the work starts inside, that we don't need to worry about all the external factors, that we're the ones that hold the power. And it sounds very cliche, but I don't think all of us got that message. And I started doing this, I was 60 years old. And I really want to help people not have to be 60 years old and figuring some of this stuff out. I wish I would have known when I was in my 20s or my 30s or shoot, even my 50s, but I didn't. I kept blaming everybody else, everything else, and then I realized it was not their fault. It was mine, and I had to do some changing and some really hard work. And so that's the space I'm in right now, and I am having a ball. This has been the most empowering, exciting, uplifting space I've ever been in.
Hmm.
I appreciate that. Hannah, you're coming to me right now. What's flowing through you right now?
I'm just so deeply inspired by what you're sharing, Gretchen, firstly. And yeah, just realizing, I've just turned 30 this year and realizing there's a whole other 30 years till of time till I'm at where you're at. And it just really excites me for the potential for people on, yeah, you really can start whenever. And for me, my biggest focus right now is very much around a similar theme of like a lot of us potentially have been led to believe through our collective programming that we're victims of our circumstance or even our genetics. And what I'm really working with is understanding the power of our mind and the power of our thoughts, and that our imagination really is our only limit. And so within that, like wherever we can take it, if we can see it as possible, if we've got other people in our field who are doing what we're aspiring to, then it's available to us as well. And there's no reason it can't be. It's just the doubt is the only thing that gets in the way of that. And so through kinesiology, we work a lot with subconscious beliefs that are rippling out and programming our reality. And it's been profound to just watch how working on that level absolutely transforms people's external environment. So.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Richard, I'm going to come to you, and then I'm going to bring in something to play with.
Yeah, I mean, I want to piggyback a little on both of what just said. Very heartfelt, and I think that the pre-programmed beliefs, some of what I want to tap into is the more along in my life I go, the more I want to tap into the inner child, the vision, the things that made me happy as a kid, and tap back into them and allow them to become present now. And when I do that, I'm amazed at who comes to me and relationships that come from that place. So the ability to dream and even to see what we create in our environment just when we are connecting and bringing in those that have affinity, like the two other guests just mentioned. So it was at my weakest moments that I brought in support, that I didn't have the answers. So I think a lot of men out there think they have to go it alone, have to be the lone wolf, they have to have the answers. So it's paradoxical. When you finally allow the universe in to support you is when radical change can happen.
You just said lone wolf. I was on a podcast earlier, and one of the people there is really just gifted when it comes to ecology, just the whole career in wildlife, and they looked at like the natural world. And they're like, when lone wolves are on their own, they don't last. Like
Don't
they're
survive.
the whole point is for them to go find a new pack. Yeah, yeah. And so you're bringing some of these things in. Each of you here, I really get that. Like each of you has like a message, and that message feels like a really powerful one. Not just because it's like powerful in the words externally, but like when I'm with all of you, I'm like, oh, I'm getting like three aligned but very different energies. Like, and it's all because like each of your messages are like attuned to something here. So there are outliers listening to this that also have a message that they want to bring out into the world, that also want to step out and start creating programs, start helping people with it, and may already be doing that and ask themselves, what's the next level of this, or how do I move to the next level? We're going to break that next level question down in a bit, because I want to kind of bridge some of the gaps there. But let's talk about this first from the element of like actually getting your message out into the world. What have y'all been doing that you have found to be like almost like no one else would believe that it would work for them, or like that it should work, or it's just like one of the things where after trying a whole bunch of things, you're like, when I do this, my message actually goes out into the world. Is there anything that feels quite attuned to anyone right now? Yeah, Hannah, why
Yeah,
don't you hit us with it?
I can jump in on that. I feel, through being in a generation where social media is really present, there's a lot of pressure that I'm putting on myself to try and fit my message into a certain format that's digestible and going to get people in the first 2 seconds. And I feel like whenever I let that go and I actually just share from my excitement and share from my authenticity and like let people into my personality, that's when like, yeah, it's digestible and people really feel that. It doesn't need to be turned into something else to stay on trend. And I think for a long time, I had a lot of confidence blocks around sharing my voice. And I feel like that's a huge part of my work, is to continually work with my voice. That's why I said yes to this today, to be like, cool, this is a practice that I'm stepping into. I feel that, yeah, just through starting small and allowing it to build its own momentum. And I think consistency has been a huge teacher for me. It's like allowing something the time to build and build an energy behind it in and of itself, instead of like what I was doing, creating something and then moving on to something else, going, oh, that didn't quite hit it off. I'll try this, I'll try that. And it's like just staying with the consistency.
Can we slow down a little bit on the consistency part of this year? Because you may know this, as outliers, we oftentimes get caught in the shiny object syndrome, or I actually think kind of what you're saying, Hannah. My experience of it was never really shiny object, but more like I'm used to things working, and this isn't working, so I mustn't be doing the wrong thing. And I feel like you kind of like we're kind of hitting on that there. So you talked about consistency, and then you also talked about time, right? And it's like allowing time to go and for the energy to come in. I see those things as two different like areas. One of them being like I'm consistent showing up, and then one of them is just like sometimes time just needs time to time. Could you speak to the difference between that and where like how the two of them kind of danced for you? Let me know if
Sure.
that question is too high level. If it's too high level, I can bring it back down to earth. It's okay.
I know, I just got to actually apologize. I've just realized my computer isn't charging like I thought it
Mhm.
was, and it might drop out in a second. So I just had my presence go to that momentarily.
I get that. I
Um,
get that. If you want to go and address that, why don't I bring in Gretchen and Richard? I would love to keep you in here for as long as you
Great.
can. All right.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh no, we're great. We're great. Gretchen, Richard,
Mhm.
either of you have anything that's coming to you that you would like to say?
Yeah, so I come from a very different generation, right? And so I'm trying to learn all this social media stuff. But what I've realized is that I put a lot of pressure on myself to jump onto these platforms, all the different things, and try to figure them out, when my strength is really when I am in person and I'm doing talks or I am giving presentations. And that's where I make my biggest connections. Is it the largest connections? No, right? It's limited by the number of people who are in that room, but they are more powerful and authentic connections for me. And that matters to me. That's really important to me. And when I started doing this, I remember having conversations around marketing and all of those types of things, strategies. And I thought, I'd rather see this grow very organically and real, so that I'm connecting with people like I want to connect with people. And I don't have the expectation of going viral or getting 1,000 likes in an hour or any of those things. So I had to kind of set aside what some of the expectations are now about what success looks like, because I wasn't necessarily going to go that whole route. Now, I've been having a great time doing my podcasts and connecting with people that way. And I get a lot of emails, and I hear from a lot of the folks who listen to my podcasts and from people who read my book, etc. And those connections really matter to me. When people take time out of their day to write an email to me, that is major connection for me. And that may be one person that day, but that means more to me than 1,000 likes from a bunch of people I don't know. So I've had to really rethink about what success looks like for me. And I'm much happier with the smaller connectedness that I experience. It's growing, but somebody else might look at that and go, wow, she's getting nowhere. But I don't believe that at all, because they're powerful and they're sustaining. And so for me, I've had to rethink of what success looks like for me.
I'm really glad you brought in this like element of like what success looks like for you, right? Like there's a component of this year that there are definitely powerful, there are definitely like forces or messages out there that say like this is what it should look like, and I'm hearing
Mhm.
that you're like Yeah, I'm actually redefining that for myself. Outliers, I'm going to invite you right now just to take a quick inventory of like how you're looking at what success means for you. And then actually ask yourself, what does success look like for you? Like true success. Gretchen, I appreciate you bringing this into our space. Let's see where we play with it. Richard, how about you? Like, you can talk about what success looks like for you. You can talk about like your journey with getting your message out there, because I know I see you doing powerful things with it. What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think a little bit of synergy of what Gretchen just mentioned, that there's a scarcity mindset in my DNA, and getting to a certain amount of money or having things, um, the idea that it will provide security has been there. And the lived experience that I have, that it'll never be enough. And the more athletes I treat or hire, esteemed professionals sitting on the other side or sitting in men's groups with me or taking that trek into the mountains, you realize that the poor man and the wealthy man carry a lot of the same wounds, uh, manifested differently. So I think in terms of how I'm learning to apply that, one, similar to what you talked about earlier, I want success to be on my terms. I want it to be from what excites me, from partnerships that excite me. I'll step into a variety of uncomfortable roles for growth, uh, if I think that the relationship or the product or the organization is creating meaning or purpose or helping or being of service to the world in a variety of capacities. Um, on the other hand, it's about how many people can I reach. The gift of a podcast or creating a course or writing a book is that I can reach so many more people globally now. Uh, and at the same time, one-on-one, for those select few that work with me in depth one-on-one, I can really transform their lives through the relationship, not just through my knowledge, but from our time together and our interaction. And through a group, sometimes I just remove myself. It's what happens in the process in front of me. And sometimes I could just be a witness.
As y'all are talking, something that's running through it for me is just like line of like the. It feels like you take people to places that feel really vulnerable for them. All right. And I want to bring in like the vulnerability in this space here. I'm not sure how to play with it, how I want to play with it, but I feel like he wants to be present. So I'm gonna go with it. Um, so the way that I've been playing with vulnerability recently has not been about like it's been not on the depth side of things, but on the height of it all. All right. And the height of it for me is the components of like something that you're creating right now that actually isn't done. You don't know if it's going to be successful or not. But it excites you, and at the same time, it scares you. Right? I'd be really curious if we can bring that into the space. Essentially, for me, I'm like the vulnerability for me, especially on like a podcast, is like when we start to talk about what's upcoming rather than what has been done. And like I'm hoping y'all are good to play a little bit with like what you are creating, because that's where all the outliers are that are listening to this. They're in the place of creating a new. Are y'all down to play a little bit that way?
Mhm.
Awesome. So let's start off here. Rich, I'm going to start with you because I'm just like, oh, going up to a mountain. Like, I think it's really cool. Like, what's a project you're taking on? What's something that you're bringing to life that like, that excites you, but at the same time kind of gives you sweaty palms? And then like, I'd love to see how you're navigating that.
Yeah, quite a few. I've decided to create a course. So to bring the book
Is this
and
your first course? Let me just check in
my
on that.
first course. So even the idea of who to work with, who sees my vision, who understands me, who knows what I'm facing right now, challenges on the day to day, that can guide me and help me learn also at the same time, to be a novice at the same time as having expertise and be willing to fail and make mistakes. And uh, like you keep using the word play. So on the one hand, I want to create something professional. On the other hand, I'm out there learning things that may be very easy to others.
Oh, but you just said this element of like to be a novice at the same time of having expertise. That game right there. I like as we're. I feel you. I feel you because it's like you've written a book, and now this is your first course, and now there's all these other questions that are involved in it. All right.
Yeah, And the exciting part is it keeps me in touch with self-improvement, keeps me in touch with a part of my life where I don't have to know, I don't have to have it figured out, and I can just be curious. And that to me equates with a lot of happiness and calm when I'm like, oh, what am I doing today? I'm learning, I'm growing. Yeah.
No, I have to ask one more follow up on this, and I want to open it up, which is like, um, for any outlier that's like used to getting the results, to be in like in the space where like, no, I have expertise. Like when I do something, I expect to get the results from it. Um, this like, what are your thoughts on that? Anything that you've used to help yourself like navigate, being a novice once again, even with all the expertise behind you? I feel like there's some elements of this that like, yeah, this has opened up something for it.
I mean, obviously, I have to know where my bread is getting buttered and where my bills are being paid, and even those partnerships, I'm likely about to begin going into work in prison 2 days a week. So even the jobs that I take are now filled with who are the souls that I'll meet in there? Who are the people that don't get helped or healing? What the men's work that I do in a group outside needs to be happening inside as well. Uh, you know, so there's a play between even things that are paying right now. I can delay the gratification a little bit on some of these other creative projects. Although I need to have goals. How many people do I want to reach? Uh, I need to be asking the right questions about, yeah, how many people are tracking it, how many people are subscribing, is it effective? So be willing to get uncomfortable with it and not just create it, turn a blind eye.
Hannah, how about you? What's something that you're building right now that's giving you that excites you, but also gives you sweaty palms?
Mhm. So I'm taking the work that I've been doing with women and supporting them to connect to their sense of self and their sense of power through working with their energy of their erotic energy, their sexuality, their sensuality, their connection with their bodies. I'm transitioning that into actually a focus around water, which is a very new thought for a lot of people. And so we're looking at like the relationship water has with absolutely everything, how water has a relationship with the quantum field, um, that it is literally universal memory, that it's been here since the beginning of time and it's like been witness to everything. And through that, like working with it in a sense of how can we build a relationship with this medium that connects all of us and is in all of us and makes up our bodies on a physical level, on a mental level, on a spiritual level. And it really excites me and I'm really passionate about it. And I'm also in the transition and introducing what I've been learning and digesting it still myself in a way that is relatable to other people. And I've noticed only really in the last month, people have started shifting from like, what do you mean water? To been like, oh, like, wow, I never thought about that before. So yeah, I love the idea of it being a new thought. And when a new thought kind of comes in and it's not as collectively understood, it's a bit like when I first started doing womb work. When I first was talking about that, it was very foreign for a lot of people. And they were like, I don't know how to connect with that part of me because I can't physically touch it. And so, yeah, just creating a new octave now with this work. And yeah.
So I'm getting really curious here because when you talk about the water element, there's two ways I can take what you're saying. One of them is just that like the world has kind of like grown in their awareness of water, and another one is like, oh no, when you happen to talk to them, people still aren't thinking about it, but when you talk to them, it's now like connected more. And I'm just like, oh, did I miss that? Like the consciousness is like, oh no, we're on water right now. This is part of our conscious like zeitgeist, or is this something that's happening more like through your transmission of it?
Yeah, so I guess it's bringing in the awareness that like we are made up of bicellular mass, nearly 99% of water, and that if it's a medium that gives life to all creatures on Earth, and we can't say that about any other element, then yeah, how can we build a relationship and a connection and actually a dialogue with this medium that connects everything and work with it as an ally? And the parallels I see between the work I've done with women and the work I've done with water is that both have been, I guess, mistreated in a lot of ways for a long time. And there's this remembrance of both as being sacred. And like, if we're not treating the water that we're connecting with, that we're drinking with well, then life on the planet can't really sustain, because it's, it sustains all life. And what I'm coming to is that if we change the water we drink and the way that we drink water, then consciousness on the planet could shift really rapidly, because it is this connective medium. Yeah.
Yeah, as you're talking, you're making me realize I'm like, you're not the only person I've talked to that's really gotten into water in this regard, Hannah. So I might have to connect you to this other person. Um, yeah, you're getting me thinking. There's some connections out there. I'm glad you're doing the work you're doing. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Gretchen, let's come to you, and then we'll just keep dancing as this conversation goes on. The component here of stepping out into creating something that's new for you, that that excites you, but at the same time gives you sweaty palms. What is it that you're bringing to life?
So I have spent my entire life stepping out of my comfort zone. I am a high sensation seeker anyway,
Mm,
but I am most comfortable in chaos and the unknown.
mm,
I have
okay.
always been that way, always. And I love the term outlier, because that is how I have lived my life from day one. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Nothing was normal. I had developed all these strategies and how to, work within this, dysfunctional home, and I went out in the world, and none of those skills or coping strategies really worked very well. So I was kind of always floundering around, but I never took the direct path to anything. Nothing, ever. And I was okay with that. I finally realized, number one, if anybody ever wrote a book about my life, it would be a lot more interesting, because I took very strange paths. But I just have always been incredibly adventurous. And I have always had this sense of wonder that you talk about, where Richard was talking about, kind of that sense of what we had when we were children. And I have always carried that with me. And so I tend to look at the world through the eyes of, I wonder what would happen if. And I'm okay if it doesn't work. 90% of what I do doesn't work. But sometimes it does. And when it does, it's amazing. And I love it. So I have a ball anyway. So what I am working with, and I love pushing myself, I love having to learn new stuff in order to accomplish something that I'm going to do next. Because if I'm not doing that, I'm really bored. I am incredibly bored. So for me, I am moving into a couple of directions that never occurred to me. But opportunities are being presented, and now I say, why not? I can do that. So I've partnered with some fitness professionals. I don't work out. I don't do any of that stuff. However, I can tell the story, because they're trying to reach people like myself, who had a lot of weight to lose, who don't want to go to the gym. And I'm like, well, I can help you there. So I'm partnering with them. And it's exciting. Is it a world I know? Not at all. Not at all. And I could fail miserably. But this is the direction that I have been brought to, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm really excited about it. And I like that nervous excitement. That's what gets me up in the morning.
I appreciate you bringing this into this space here, like uh, the element like the potential of failure, all right, of it not working, at the same time continuously navigating it I feel the energy that you bring to the table with it. I feel like uh and the word like inevitable comes to mind as I hear you speak. It's like some way, shape, or form, this will be inevitable. I don't know how it's going to look. And especially with us here at Outliers, like a lot of us, like our stories make sense looking backwards, but
Yeah, that's a good
never
point. I
on
love
the way.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, obviously you're using this skill in this way. Um, so let's bring in some things here. So I'm curious now for anyone out here who each of you do something different, but all of you are finding different ways to uplift people or bring people closer to themselves, all right? And have that be expressed out in the word in a way. I'm curious for you all, like, what have you all experimented with in terms of bringing in clients, bringing in people like to you and into your programs? And what have been some things that you found that like really resonate for you? I have this. I know someone who wrote a note in a bottle, threw it into the ocean, and then 3 years later, someone gave him a call, and so like, so I think everything works. It just depends on like what's working, what works for you. I wouldn't use it as a business strategy, y'all. But I am really curious here because there's a lot of outliers who are thinking, but my thing might be too far off the wall, and I'm curious about like how y'all have navigated that in the business sense. I don't know if any of you would like to speak to that.
I mean, I have all the degrees and all the licenses, so I can get all the people through all the conventional ways, but unfortunately, it seldom has led to those with affinity of energy. So it's almost paradoxical. By doing the groups, by leading forward with my passion, by volunteering to take men up a mountain and do uncomfortable things while I'm there. So I'm volunteering. I was not a Boy Scout growing up. I'm building fires, I'm carrying logs, and I'm interacting one-on-one with these men on the trail. So they're getting the real me. So having environments, having spaces to volunteer, I mentor in a class on my spiritual path, right? I get to be beyond my ego. I'm not filtered. And I think because of that, I'm connecting more. And when I'm doing that, I think whether it be that person I'm talking to or someone they know, uh, they're more prone to refer. And I like it when somebody comes through someone I'm working or related to someone I'm working with because there's trust and there's security there that I'm going to take care of them.
Nice, Hannah. I see you unmuted. Anything you want to toss in?
Yeah, a really beautiful just hearing that, because I feel for the longest time I was in a space of like being pinned to my desk at home, trying to establish my business, being in a lot of scarcity and a lot of stress, was like completely abandoning looking after myself in that process. And there was a moment where I realized I had to rewire all of that, and I just peeled everything back and took the pressure off everything for a little bit so that I could feel where the excitement was and how I wanted to move forward. And I noticed that once I was out in the world interacting with people, my energy spoke for itself. And then that became the most powerful way for people to just, they'd bring it up like, oh, I want to get a one-on-one session with you. I want to do your course, or how's this thing going? And now I realized, after building this reputation online with like a lot of information and about topics and spending so much time on that, actually people are just interested in being in my energy field with what I have cultivated for myself and letting that be the transmission. And yeah, similar to what Richard was saying, like that rippling through people who have worked with me, sharing that with other people because it's impacted their lives, and that rippling out through their world. And yeah, it's just started to carry itself in a really beautiful way.
Go ahead, Gretchen. I see you here. Is there anything you want to bring in?
Yeah, so I love everything that Hannah and Richard have said, and you as well. For me, it is when I have these, and they as well, these honest, vulnerable, real connections with people, um, then they connect you with other people because what you have is legit. We all guard against, or try to guard against, people who are trying to manipulate or use or sell us something, or try to twist something that we're trying to do. And I think we all have to develop some sense of real connection and opportunity versus going down too many rabbit holes. But I have found that when I make legit connections, and we don't even have to say anything. I was giving a talk at the World Obesity Congress a few weeks ago, And there was this guy sitting in the back of the room that, as I was talking, I mean, just non-verbally, we could tell that we were in sync. And he was totally getting what I was talking about. And we chatted afterward, and all these other new opportunities came out of that because he's incredibly well connected in this whole other sphere. And so I think for me, as I think they have already said, it really comes from a place of vulnerability and connection and genuine of generosity, I think, because when we really connect on that level, number one, it takes a lot of energy. It just does. And it can sometimes be painful, and it can sometimes cause me to be uncomfortable because I mean, I'm pretty open and I'll talk about anything, but sometimes I get a little close to things that are putting me in a place of I'm not quite sure I want to go there, but that's growth opportunities for me. And I think when we trust the universe or whomever that we are in the right place at the right time where we're supposed to be, then I think we have to give ourselves over to that. And that's what's opening up these other opportunities. So I'm not forcing anything. They are happening naturally. I'm not sitting on my couch either, but I'm not running around trying to sell something just for the sake of trying to sell something.
Y'all have me like very intrigued. There's something here where I'm getting around like the alignment that each of you have found, the elements of like the energetic transmission and just being like I put myself out in service and I do the work. And as I'm in the process of doing the work, it's opening up conversations as well as like allowing room for like energetic transformation or transference to take place. Hannah, there's something in what you said where I'm like, oh yeah, like being trapped behind a computer, and just the difference when people are just like, I don't know why, but you are magnetizing. And there's something that happens when we go from the three-dimensional into our like, two-dimensional like compressed sphere, which is this like this medium of onlineness that I think gets lost. So, allies, I want to speak to you about this here. Like, what I'm hearing is that like they found something that works for them, and they're unapologetic about it. Not only are they unapologetic, they're leaning into it and creating more opportunities to be in service. So just think about what it is that you have to bring to the world right now. And if you're putting it behind the glass monitor, perhaps see what happens when you actually give yourself a chance to be in that. And I think your words were like the energetic fields of one another, and see what comes out of that. I can't believe the time has really flown here, and we've come to the end of our conversation. What I want to do is do two things. One, I want to talk to Outliers really quickly. Outliers, we have a thing here where we'd love for you to help us get this conversation and these messages out into the ears of as many people, the ears and eyes of as many people as possible. So just generally speaking, if you have a platform, go and share this out with them. Let them know, let people know why you like this episode and go share it. But underneath all that is this one initiative that's really come to mean a lot here, which is the one person, one conversation at a time initiative. And with this here, it's just about finding one person in your life who would benefit from this conversation and sharing this episode with them directly, intentionally. Let them feel your energetic field. Let that transfer over to them and say, I heard this podcast and I was thinking of you because, and then share this with them and let them know and let them receive the gift of having you think of them. So if we can do that there, that would be absolutely awesome. I just really believe like underneath all this, like that one person, one conversation at a time initiative is really going to be where this whole thing takes off. Right. So as we wrap up together, I like to do it in two ways. I like to offer you a chance to help outliers know how they can go deeper in your journey, like how they can reach out to you and so forth. And then also for you to share an insight that you got from this conversation. And look, here goes the thing. If you did not get an insight, if there's nothing that you're taking away from this conversation, that's not a problem. Just let us know. And that's good too. But I want to give room for that. Just know that like outliers have gotten to what they need to get. At this point, they're working on it for themselves. This is just an opportunity for us as outliers to also share some of the experience that we got from there. Okay. So Gretchen, why don't we start with you? How can people go further down the journey with you? And what's an insight that you got from the conversation?
Well, for me, I've gotten a lot of insights from this conversation. I love the energy. I love the conversations around even what an outlier is. I mean, because I really resonate with that. So that definitely has resonated with me, and I like the whole theme around vulnerability and authenticity and being in the energy. When I learned what my purpose was, my truth, and I started leaning into that, even if it made me uncomfortable, that's when things started to happen. And I think that's because it's easy to hide behind a screen, like Hannah said, right? When you're doing the work, but sometimes we hide a little bit. And so I loved what Hannah had to say. I really did. And the other question was, I'm sorry, what was it?
How best can outliers go and find you?
Oh, find me. Oh, sure. So I'm all over LinkedIn, but I have a website, www.gretchenholmesphd.com, and everything you need is there. My book, my podcast, everything. Easy to find.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here, Gretchen. Richard, let's come to you. Please share with us an insight you got and how people can go down the journey with you.
Well, a lot of beautiful insights today, and a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the other guests and for the Outliers podcast. I thought it kept coming to me is that the more you come onto yourself, the more you will stand out. That in trying to be an outlier, sometimes it's just about really embracing your natural strengths and gifts. And so I'm always amazed from hearing the stories or even seeing you as a host here in this element to see what it creates and what it can create for community in the world and what we can do together. And as far as staying in touch and working with me, that's pretty much what my book is, Zero Method, Awaken the Hero Within. So it's on my website, everything, all my social media, Instagram, everything's on richardlistens.com. So hit me up. Love to continue the conversation. And wherever you are in the world, sit in on a men's group. If you're a man listening to yourself, or if you're a female, there's women's groups out there. Take the time to get yourself in community, receive mentorship and support, and see what happens.
Thank you for that, Richard. I appreciate that. And then Hannah.
I feel the takeaway for me today has just been a deepening appreciation for, like, when you strip back what we're kind of talking about. Like, I come from a community that could be seen as a little bit woo-woo. It's why I really enjoy the science and trying to share that language side of things. However, when you strip just the language back and everything, and I really appreciate the energy that you're bringing here and all of you are bringing, because when we do, we discover that what we're talking about, that vulnerability, is innately human. And it's something that maybe a lot of people don't have a lot of practice in or encouragement around because of our environment and our conditioning. But yeah, the power of vulnerability and the power of following our excitement and sharing from that place, and something that is innately ours and lights us up, and how that translates. Uh, yeah, it just speaks for itself. So it's just a deepening appreciation for me of the power of that today. Yeah. And to reach me, the easiest way is probably through Instagram. And that's just, I've got an underscore on either end of Hannah Vela. And then my website is just www.hannahvela.com. And same as Gretchen, everything that I'm about is on there. So
Well, there we have it. Well, I appreciate each of you for being here. Thank you so much for making the time, and thank you for living a life of experience so you can share it with all of us. Outliers, remember this: until the next time we talk, be you on purpose. Journey on.